Dan Johnson here. We are at Sun and Fun 2012, and today we have an opportunity to talk with John Williams. He's the man behind Titan Aircraft, and Titan Aircraft is the company that produces this impressive Mustang replica that has attracted quite a bit of attention since you first started this. So, a little historical perspective. You started with the Titan Aircraft. We'll look at one of those in a little bit. That was quite a while ago. But then along came your interest in doing this particular project, which is, to me, quite an amazing project. Right. When did you start this, John?
Well, really, I first got involved in the ultralight movement back in 1987 when I was doing the CGS Hawk.
Ah, okay.
And I manufactured.
You produced that for a while,
yeah,
did you not?
I actually did that for CGS for about 3 years, and that's where I got my education.
Okay.
And that's where I really learned about the industry.
That's 25 years ago, John.
Yeah.
You don't look that old to me.
Really
anyway, go on.
learned about the industry, and it was very, very interesting and exciting because it's cutting edge. You can do, we were able to do whatever we wanted to do.
A lot of freedom,
and had the ability to change things at will. So it was very, very exciting. And then, and it was about 91 then that 91 that, well, it was 90 when I decided to do my own airplane, and that's when we did the Titan Tornado, and everyone calls it the Titan because that's the
sure,
name.
Right. Tornado is the actual name, and you had a couple of variations of that too.
And
a single place, a two place, and so
There's
on.
actually 4 different variations of that. We have the single place, and the D model, then the stretch model, and the super stretch model.
Okay, we'll get into more about that. But, but then, so that was.
But always I had the passion for the Mustang. See, when I really got
even
involved,
when you were doing the other ones.
That's
okay.
Right. When I was doing the Hawk, when I started this, the passion was really to do what I always wanted to do as a Mustang because I always wanted a Mustang, but I couldn't afford it.
You and all the other Walter Mitties of the world who wanted a real Mustang, but if they could afford it, they couldn't afford to run it.
That's right.
So
and so that's really where that came from, and so I got interested in doing the Hawk because I thought, well, if I learn enough about this, maybe I'll be able to someday design a
so that was your tuition.
Yeah, that's right. That was exactly. That's the way it worked out. But it was a lot of fun, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And now you put out quite a few of those before you started this project. About how many you got out there?
We did on the we did 120 Hawks in that 3 years.
Oh wow!
And so that was a lot. We sold a lot overseas. And then with the tornadoes, we've done over 700 tornadoes.
700 tornadoes, wow.
Yeah. So there's about 700 tornadoes.
Well, again, we'll come back to that. But when did this actually start then? When did you cut the first piece of metal or
when
draw
we
the first line or however that worked?
Probably in about 96 I started
96,
mocking things up. But we really didn't do much. I just tried out some different panels and so forth to see if I could achieve the look from with
you got a lot of curved metal here you had to probably learn how to do and stuff.
With simplified manufacturing techniques. So I wanted to see if it was doable, and I came to the conclusion that the sides are almost flat, so there's not really many compound curves, and we were able to do the few compound curves that we do in glass, and the rest of it's pretty much just single
this
curves.
piece here is just it's a curve, but it's not a compound curve with multiple angles.
It's only
to
curved.
That
in
gets
one
real
direction.
complicated in metal, I know.
Exactly. So,
and you're trying to do these things where people can actually afford them, so you had to do it that way.
Yeah.
And so when did the first one go together?
In 2001.
2001. Okay.
I finally
so a little over 10 years of this, then.
Yeah, and I kept trying to. Probably from about 96 to about 2001, I kept trying to get it into production, and every time I'd get off on another path with the tornado. Like that's when we did the stretch model.
Right. Okay. So that kind of distracted you, if you will, from your pet project here.
And so it was 2001. I finally decided. In fact, what I did was I took the 4 guys that I wanted to work on the project. I took them off site, and it was the end of August it was August 29th, I think, of 2001. Wow. And I took them off site, and I said, okay, guys, this is all you're going to work on until it's done. And of course, they all looked at me like I was crazy. But then we had, a couple weeks later, it was 9/11.
Right, just before that.
And the bottom fell out of the market, and of course, things slowed down. So it actually allowed us to devote more time.
So in a strange, sort of perverse way, it gave you the time to do what you wanted to do.
Actually, it did. Because otherwise, it would have probably been difficult to keep those guys on that project.
I see. So when did the first one fly?
And it was then in May of 2002.
Okay, so you're
So it was about a 9-month project.
Just about at your 10-year anniversary then for the T51.
Exactly.
As you called it. There have been some other variations of letter and 51, but yours is T51 and you own that now.
Yeah.
So.
And the whole thing was I wanted to, during that time, when I was evaluating it, it was a matter of, do I make a high performance airplane? Do I make it? I wanted it to look like the Mustang, and initially I was going to make it high performance. But then I decided after watching like the Stewart and the FEW and the other ones come together and have their problems. I decided
they were really pushing the envelope in every way to make it as close to the military version as they could.
Right.
So you had a different thought then.
And my thought was, and really I changed from high performance to I wanted to make it a friendly, easy to fly airplane.
So with all the look, the ultimately look,
right,
but the ultralight feel, or not maybe ultralight,
probably not ultralight, but just a friendly airplane,
but a regular guy.
Right. And what I call the other airplanes is high pucker factor airplanes, where you when you get out of them, it takes about 15 minutes to shop shake. And this airplane is the opposite of that, and that's what I was after. And but still reasonable performance, because I was with the 912.
So put some performance parameters on it for us.
Well, what I was looking for was about 150 mile an hour cruise and short field capability. And with the original Mustang, you flew the original.
That's right.
And it would get off the ground about 300 feet. It landed about 300 feet, and it would cruise in the high 140s. Yeah. So it was it kind of achieved what I wanted, but everyone wanted more power. So we ended up eventually going to, and I was afraid of the automotive engines, and actually stayed away from the automotive engines for several years.
Yeah, the one I flew had Rotax.
Right.
Did it not?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah, and because again, I felt that the heavy automotive engines, you're going to combine the lack of reliability of the automotive engine with a heavy airplane,
with the weight of it,
and make it a dangerous airplane.
So what are you using today? What power is a Mustang today?
Most of them are going with, this one happens to be a Suzuki V6, which is out of a Grand Vitara. It has a gearbox reduction. It's like a 2.2 to 1 reduction. It's 2.26 to 1 gear reduction, and a constant speed prop. And this will cruise at about 165.
It will, okay.
Yeah. And
miles an hour or not?
Yeah, miles an hour.
Miles an hour, okay.
And it's but it'll still get off the ground at 300 feet.
Wow.
It takes a little longer.
What does it stall at then? Let's put this all in perspective.
The Rotax engine airplanes would stall in the low 40s, or if not below 40. And this airplane is probably high 40s.
Really?
Yeah, high 40s to low 50s.
Even if you call that 50 to 160, that's past that. Yeah. You're into that holy grail territory that is not easy to achieve.
Right. And it works.
So it works a pretty short field aircraft, even though it can go 165 miles an hour.
Yeah, I just got back from New Zealand, and we sold like 40 of these into New Zealand.
No kidding.
And in New Zealand, all the strips are short. This would be a long strip, and
is that right?
Son of a strip here would be a long strip in New Zealand. And they of course love it for that reason, that they can get in and out of those short paddocks.
Well, since you mentioned 40 in New Zealand, give us the big picture. How many total of these?
175. We're going to deliver serial number 175 when we get back.
Is that right? Wow, that's a pretty good run. So 10 years of that. Obviously, the first year's a little slower. You've had some pretty good years with this thing.
Yeah. It's been very good. And now the engine probably of choice right now though is the Honda engine.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the Honda engine.
The Honda is this is a 2.7 liter, 180 horsepower as it's in the car.
180 in this one, okay.
And the Honda engine is a 3.5 liter, and it's
substantially bigger.
Yeah, and it's 245 horses.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Holy cow! 245 horsepower.
Now
in an airplane that can take off in 300 feet.
Yeah, and it still it gets off the ground a little less than 300 feet.
Is that right?
Yeah. Of course, it's getting heavier. This engine weighs about 315 pounds, and the Honda engine's about 415 pounds.
Is that right?
So it's a little heavier, but the performance is really there. From an aerobatic standpoint, the penetration is super. It climbs at over 3,000 feet a minute.
Oh wow!
And it'll do.
We're starting to get into real or military Mustang territory. Not quite,
but it's still a very friendly airplane.
Is that right?
The
handling and the characteristics, things like that.
And that's what I was,
the stall characteristics.
Yeah, still very.
So
very
these airplanes are used for aerobatic flying, at least by some people.
Yeah, we do. In fact, I ended up going and getting my low-level aerobatics approval,
your endorsement or something.
endorsement,
Yeah.
And Bill and I do, we go around doing aerobatics at different air shows. And
Cool.
stuff, so.
Well, let's have a few other basic parameters about since we talked about the engine weight. What is the aircraft? Let's talk about gross weight first of all. On the Honda equipped ones.
Okay.
What's gross weight?
Well, the Honda equipped ones, we've bumped the gross weight up to 2,000 pounds.
2,000. Okay. So what's empty then?
And empty is about 1,300.
Okay. Well, so
you
that's
got about
still
700 pound
700 pound useful. It's a two-person aircraft, of course. How much fuel you got on board?
Well, there's about standard configuration is 32, and then on the Hondas we usually stretch that out to we stretch it out to 32. Standard configuration is 26.
Okay, so at 32, what is that, 190 pounds or some number like that? So you still got a 500-pound payload with full fuel in this aircraft. That's two pretty big guys.
Yeah.
Can two guys that weigh that big?
Oh yeah, Bill. I don't know.
In?
You see Bill. Bill's about 290, and I've seen him with bigger guys than him in the airplane.
And they physically fit in the airplane too.
Yeah.
Now I remember from
they're shoehorned in there, but no,
they're
Bill,
shoehorned in a lot of things.
Yeah, the front seat there's really plenty of room for a guy that size, but in the rear seat it gets a little bit.
Now,
tight.
when I flew it, I don't believe there was a rear seat, right?
Oh no, there was.
There was, but I flew it solo. I know.
Right, you flew it solo.
And I recall, I'm not quite as big as the fellow you just mentioned, but I remember there was a lot of room in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and in
quite
fact,
a bit of room.
the later that was the prototype that you flew, and the later ones I actually moved the seat back, tipped the seat back a little bit, so it's a little more comfortable and a little more.
Yeah, it was a little upright then. Felt kind of like a military one that you wanted to get out of at some point. So you fixed that part. Great.
Are you still offering an experimental kit that'll fit into the
LSA?
LSA category?
Yes. Yeah, we do. And in fact, this airplane would.
Now you're going to have some different engine stuff and whatnot then to keep it LSA at 120 knots.
Well, with the gear down though and a fixed pitch propeller, that's easy to achieve.
Okay.
Yeah. And
is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And when you do those then for those that want the LSA, is it a fixed gear or you just say
fixed.
you can't retract it?
You can't retract.
Okay.
I mean, what they do is I'm sure that the FAA wants them to put a
pin or something, right? Yeah.
Something in there.
And then a fixed fit.
And what I recommend to the guys is have set it up so that it could be easily converted back to retractable.
Right. In case you change your mind later.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, great. Well, I guess I wasn't even actually aware that you had some that did fit in the LSA category. So that gives you a lot of possibilities then.
Right.
Besides the Tornado that we'll talk about a little bit
later.
later.
And there's probably about 3 flying in the LSA category.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. But most of them are going for the glory.
They want the noise. I personally like the Rotex engine because it was so quiet.
Right.
But everyone, most of the customers want that noise.
You go to an air show and it doesn't make some noise. It's like, what's wrong with that airplane? But your neighbors at home might kind of like it if you had the quieter version. Are you still offering it with the Rotex?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. And in fact, probably. Oh geez, and when I was in New Zealand, there were probably 5 flying with the Rotex engine in New Zealand.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that continues to be a product for you.
Because the Rotex engine it's a bulletproof engine.
Bulletproof, right?
I don't have to sell you on that. I'm preaching to the choir there. And it's but I had a hard time selling that to a lot of our customers.
Yeah, I understand. It doesn't quite fit the mystique.
Most of the converts to this airplane, are coming from GA, and when you'd say Rotex to them, they'd think 2-cycle.
Right. Snowmobile engine, the whole thing.
Yeah.
They're
I had
slowly
to
starting to get over that, and they're trying real hard.
Right.
Of course, they're doing great, but yeah, I understand. If you want the Mustang mystique here, you probably want this big.
And this Suzuki really barks because of the way the exhaust just straight stacks coming out.
Okay.
The Honda's actually a little bit. It has a lot more grunt, but it's actually a little quieter because it has a log and it diffuses the exhaust a little bit. But it's a little bit quieter, but not much.
So what kind of building times is someone in looking at and putting one of these airplanes together?
It's about 1,500 hours build time.
And what does that translate to for the? We always say the average builder, and of course there is no average builder. Everybody's a little bit different. Some are quite experienced and probably knock it out a little faster.
Well, you figure that
what's a typical guy, whatever that word means?
How many years?
Yeah, what does that translate to? Right.
Well, I've had guys do it in as little as 6 months.
Oh, is that right?
But typically it's
not married, evidently.
It's a couple, right? Or
We're not married anymore.
Not now. Yeah.
But the typical guy.
The typical guy is probably going to be 1.5 to 2 years.
Well, that's not so bad, though.
What are you supplying? Is it an all laser OEM? Laser cut unit?
We actually do a lot at the factory. The entire center section is built, so and that's all pre-drilled because that's the heart of the airplane, the main spar. and we do the spar forward on the outer wing panels, so that all the critical stuff is done there. There's, you know, if someone would make a mistake on the spar, and then you have a dangerous
problem. You're either starting all over again, or you got
dangerous.
Right.
So we do that work, and then we build all the control surfaces because they're all tapered. So we build those in, and then the most of the work is actually in the fuselage.
Okay.
And because it's
and now you've been through then the kit evaluation thing with the FAA. They come out and they give a pretty close look at this stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
And I assume you've been through that and you're done, and it's copacetic the way it is.
They rated this kit, I think, at 3664.
Okay.
So
you're only the factory are only doing 36% in their evaluation. Right. So you're easily within that 51% rule.
Right.
Of course, it's not the 51% rule. It's the experimental amateur built rule that is 51%.
Right.
We've covered a lot of stuff here, John, and there's a lot more that people want to know.
Right.
Where do we want to send them on the web to find out more information, to contact you, to ask about pricing and that stuff?
You go to TitanAircraft.com.
TitanAircraft.com.
Right. And
that covers your whole line, then.
That
not
really
just
covers
the
Tornado and the Mustang.
Okay. And if somebody says, sign me up, how long would it be before they could have one?
Well, typically, right now, kits are about 8 to 10 weeks.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. 2.5 months in, you can have your kit.
And actually, we've seen an upturn in business in the last, probably over the last year.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Great.
And probably at one point there, I know in the early days, we were stretched out probably 8 months.
Okay.
And
you're on the phone a lot talking to people then about that, aren't you?
So, but now we brought that down. We actually brought it down to probably where we were about 4 weeks, and now it's we're getting busy enough that it's stretching back out.
Well, that's great. Talking today with John Williams of Titan Aircraft with the magical Mustang right behind us, and another product that we're going to look at a little bit later. Thanks so much for talking to us today, John.
Okay.
Dan Johnson reporting from Sun and Fun 2012. And in answer to the question, yes, I have gotten to fly this airplane. It was one of my thrills of my flying career, and it's a whole good story. That's available on buydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com.